Welcome back! I'm Mama Dr. Jones, a board-certified ObGyn, a mom to 4, and today we're reacting to Jessica Kent's I Had a Baby in Prison. You all have been asking me to react to this for a year since she uploaded it. I finally did it, and it is incredibly emotional. I shed some tears, but there's so much to be learned. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. If you'd like to stick around, we would love to have you, and let's jump into the video.
For those of you that don't know, I am a recovering addict with 7 years sober. I also served time in prison, and that is kind of where our story begins today. So I got arrested in October 2011 on a set of drug charges and gun charges. 2 or 3 weeks after my arrest, I started to feel sick. I was going through detoxing. I was detoxing off of meth and Roxy's, but I started to feel a different kind of sick, one that I wasn't used to. My stomach was hurting. I was getting period cramps, but not having a period. All I remember is sitting on this nurse's station, and I'm coming off of drugs, hard drugs, drugs that I use intravenously. My withdrawals are very serious. This nurse comes up to me. She is very busy, has an entire hallway of girls waiting for her. She comes up to me and says, "Oh, well, that's the problem. You're pregnant. You can go back now." And I'm like, excuse me, I know you're busy, but no, that's wrong. You must have mixed me up with someone else. I'm not pregnant. Now, I was on birth control at this time, and I just thought, like, this chick is crazy. I'm not pregnant. So I went back to my cell in complete denial, and I went back to sleep. A couple hours went by, and a CO comes to my cell door. She's like, "I need to move you because you're pregnant." And she yelled this, you guys.
That is definitely not okay. People still have a right to protect their health information as an inmate, so that is not something that should happen. It's also, as I'm sure she's about to explain, dangerous for people to have these things recognized about them when they're in prison or in jail.
I was a drug dealer in Fort Smith, Arkansas. Half of the jail was people that I sold to and that liked me and that was kind of cool with me. The other half of the jail was people that baby daddy, and I'll leave those stories in the comment section down below, had cheated on me with, or they were not cool with him, or they had some kind of vendetta against him. So I had a lot of enemies. I did have support, I did have backup, but I had enemies too. And the one thing you don't want in prison, at this time was jail, was for people to see a weakness in you. You don't want people to know that you're vulnerable for any reason, because now you're letting people know that there's a way to get to me. There's a way to hurt me.
You still have a right to privacy of your health information if you are in jail. You lose a lot of rights when you go to jail for a crime that you committed, but you still have a right to protect your health information from the people around you. That absolutely is not something that should be happening.
I spent 3 months at this county jail with no prenatal vitamins. I didn't want to believe that I was pregnant. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want people to know. The guards finally were like, "Oh, Kent isn't going anywhere, so we need to take her to a doctor." Now, my doctor's appointments, you guys, were so embarrassing. This is not their fault. I broke the law. I deserve to go to prison. This is my fault. I take full responsibility for my actions. But I just want you guys to see, like, I want you guys to understand what it's like to be pregnant in jail and then prison. They would take me out in my orange clothes, leg chains at this time, even though I was pregnant, they did not care, a belly chain, and handcuffs in the front at a free clinic that everyone else went to. I didn't get to go in the back door. I had to sit in the same waiting room as everyone else. People would take pictures of me. People were talking about me, like whispering, like, "Oh, what is she here for?" Like, "Oh, what'd she do? I wonder who that is." Like, it was so embarrassing. The nurses would be talking about me right outside of the door. I could hear what they were saying. I was also a very, very bad addict. I had track marks all up and down my arms. Thankfully, I was only a couple of weeks pregnant when I got arrested. So my daughter is healthy and she's fine and everything's good, but we'll get there.
Yeah, this is really interesting. She's right. She's lucky that she wasn't on those hard drugs in pregnancy, because those can be very dangerous. But withdrawal in early pregnancy can be very dangerous as well. So I'm glad that everything worked out for her. As far as having people come into the clinic like this, I've had patients who were currently in jail or prison, and she's right. I mean, that's exactly how it works. And it's hard on them, but it's kind of part of the deal if you've broken the law and you're in jail. People talking about her outside the room or making snarky comments within the medical team is absolutely unacceptable. And if you happen to watch this, Jessica, I'm sorry from a medical standpoint that anybody would do something like that, because that's unacceptable. We aren't there to judge people or to make people feel bad or to gossip about people. Nobody deserves that. I mean, you should be able to keep at least some of your dignity. And that's just a mark of a bad medical office. I mean, you just shouldn't have people doing that. It's just not okay in general.
At this point, I'm a little over 6 months pregnant, and it's time for me to go to prison. They shackle me. They shackle my feet. They shackle my stomach. They shackle my hands. They put me into a van with other people. They tell me I can't go to the bathroom. If you're 6 months pregnant, there is no waiting. Like, you have to pee every 20 minutes, especially if the baby is positioned a certain way. That was not a luxury that I had, you guys. And again, I'm not saying that, oh, feel bad for me, this is so horrible, I broke the law, I deserve to go to prison. I just want to walk you through what it's like to have a baby in prison.
Despite the fact that most states don't have rules against this, ACOG, the American College of ObGyn, has specifically stated that they are against the use of shackles in pregnancy. Now, this is more important in the clinical setting and specifically during labor and delivery, but even that means that it happens sometimes. And so, I don't know how, if you're pregnant, should it be that you don't have to be shackled just like everybody else if you're being moved between a county jail and a prison? I don't know, but certainly when you are in the physician office or in the hospital for something, there should be an ability, both because it's easier for us to make a diagnosis and because the patient deserves to have adequate medical care that is thorough, that patients are not supposed to be, in most cases, shackled. And most of us feel that in our office setting and in the hospital setting, that's appropriate.
When we finally get to the prison, I'm walked into intake. The correctional officer says to me, I have to squat and cough like all the rest of the girls, but I'm trying to bend over and do it the way that she wants, but I'm also 6 months pregnant. I have a huge stomach and I almost fell over. During my time in county jail, I was also pushed and tripped, and people tried to hurt me and my child. Now we're in prison and I'm trying to bend over and squat and cough for her the way that she wants me to, but I can't because my stomach is in the way and I physically can't do what she wants. That makes the guards scream and yell at me, and they think that I'm hiding things in my body cavity, which of course I was not. Finally, I get through the intake process and they put me in a hallway. I have to sit cross-legged, 6 months pregnant, for over 6 hours. I was then transferred from a maximum security prison to a medium security prison where other women were pregnant. Now, we all handle trauma and pain and grief differently, but I believed in my heart of hearts that because I was watching other women go to have their babies in the hospital and come back within 24 hours, that if that girl did it, I can do it. If that girl could handle this and be pregnant and have that baby and come back to prison, there's no doubt in my mind that I can do that.
So I think the last statistic I saw on this was that about 4% of women in state prisons are pregnant at any given time. So this is a not uncommon occurrence that she's discussing. And, some of these things are things that I think, I would be really horrible for anyone and probably exacerbated when you're pregnant. And some of them are genuinely things that I think maybe they should consider some better accommodations for people. I mean, her discussing having trouble bending over the right way and it making the guards really angry is very real. I mean, you can't move exactly the same way as somebody who doesn't have a 25-week baby in their uterus. So I think that she's talking about a lot of things. Some of them are things that I don't know that we could help. And it doesn't sound like she thinks all of them should be changed, but certainly some of them, it seems like, especially with a 4 to 5% population in a state prison, should be addressed better. And the legal system and the medical system, honestly, all do a really poor job of addressing these things as a whole.
A lot of the women knew that my daughter was going into DHS custody because I didn't have family in the state of Arkansas. They tried to tell me over and over again, you will never get custody of your daughter back. You will lose. If you're in prison for over 1 year after your daughter is born, you will lose. I was pregnant and emotional, and that was not very good for my mental health to hear that. 2012 at 4:30 in the morning, I started to get really intense back pain, and I tried to tell other people that I was fine. I'm like, no, I slept wrong. Like, it's a prison mattress. I'm definitely not in labor. I'm totally fine. And I walked down to the chow hall. Every step was more painful. As I got closer and closer to the chow hall, I tried even harder to hold back my pain. I'm now in active labor, but I've never been in labor before, so I'm thinking that I can just wait it out another day. I don't have to go to the hospital today. I think I'm okay. I sit down with my tray and I try to pick up my spork, it's prison, and I drop it because a contraction hit me so hard. I'm grinding my teeth. I am trying not to scream out loud. I'm basically shaking, holding in this pain. And someone that was sitting next to me said, girl, I have to take you to the infirmary. You're in labor, you're in labor. And she calls the cop over and I'm so mad, you guys. I don't know why, but I just didn't want to tell them I was having a baby because I can't have a baby because then I'm going to lose the baby. And I just wasn't mentally prepared or mentally ready for it.
Exactly what she said is what was going through my head is she doesn't want to admit that she's in labor because that means that the baby gets taken away. And it's heartbreaking and it's terrible. And I can't imagine being in that position. And I'm really happy to be seeing her on this side where she's gotten her life together and it sounds like has custody of her child. But I think sometimes it's hard to think about these things because you think, okay, this person, they committed a crime, they deserve to be in prison. But having your child taken away against your will is a very traumatic situation, whether you are in prison for something that you did or not. And there's a lot of argument here as to if that is cruel and unusual punishment. And I'm not going to make a statement towards that. I don't know enough about all of this to say what is politically the correct way to look at this. But I would say that this is trauma that people who aren't pregnant when they enter into prison, they don't generally go through something like this. This is quite different because it's not only emotional and physical separation, but this is a physiologic process that happens to your body and then the physical separation. And that's really difficult. And I can't imagine what it felt like to go through that. Y'all wanted me to react to this and it's sad. I mean, I'm glad I'm watching it. It's making me think a lot, but it's hard to watch.
The guards, very cold, say to me, "Can you walk, Kent?" And I'm like, yes, I can walk. And they're like, walk to the infirmary. And I just walked down there in full active labor. No one got a wheelchair for me. No one helped me. I walked down by myself, holding my stomach. Every single step to the infirmary, which was pretty far, was so painful. I finally get to the infirmary door and I stand outside the door waiting for them to pop the door. There is a process. I had to be buzzed into the infirmary, buzz into another door, and then another door. So I finally get to the last door where I can enter the infirmary and I'm standing outside the door and I just want to fall down and scream. I'm in so much pain. The nurses take one look at me and kind of just assume that I'm in labor. They didn't check me out. They said, okay, well, we have to wait till shift change at 7:30 for you to go to the hospital. And I thought, what? Shift change? Like,
yeah, I thought that too. I just spit on myself. Yeah, that's not okay. I mean, it sounds like somebody doesn't want to take her because they don't want to get off late. But if she is in labor, like she's describing, which we're going to take her at her word that she is, there is absolutely no reason that she shouldn't be transported to the hospital. You absolutely retain your right to adequate and thorough medical care, even as a prisoner. This is bananas. I am angry for her. And if I was a doctor accepting her and she told me this, I would be so mad at them.
Like, I understand there's a process here, but they're like, we're not going to take you. We'll wait for a shift change. And I thought, I'm alone. I don't know what to do. I'm in crazy amounts of pain. I've never had a baby before. I'm terrified. They put me in this wheelchair with a it kind of looks like a puppy pad underneath me because I'm bleeding. No one talks to me, helps me, asks me if I'm okay for almost 3 hours. I'm just sitting there alone. I can't call my mom. I can't call my family. I can't call anyone and tell them I'm in labor because it's a security risk. And I sit there in active labor alone, bleeding everywhere for almost 3 hours.
I am horrified. 3 hours alone while bleeding, by the way. All pregnancy complications are slightly increased by just being in prison during a pregnancy. That is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. There are a few things that you absolutely retain your right to while you are in prison, and adequate medical care to ensure the health and safety of yourself and your baby are one of them.
Finally, an ambulance comes and they take me to the hospital. I was very fortunate to get a correctional officer with me that was very kind to me. The emergency room checks me out in Little Rock. They say, yes, you're 6 centimeters dilated. We have to get you upstairs. I go upstairs. My daughter was born at 3 p.m. The nurses during my labor were condescending, were mean, they didn't talk to me. They talked to the correctional officer that was by my shoulder. They wouldn't talk to me directly at all. Can she have this? Can she have that? Is she doing that? Is she okay? Is the baby going here? No one asked me anything. So finally, when my daughter was born, I had told myself that if I don't look at her, I won't love her. And if you just take her away, then I'll be okay.
This is absolutely breaking my heart. And I'm mad at her medical team for not treating her as a human. You're still a human, even in prison. I'm mad at her team from the prison for not getting her adequate care at a time that it should have been done. This is horrible.
She came out, I saw like a glimpse of her, and then I just looked this way and I wanted them to take her away because I knew I had to say goodbye. And I thought if I just rip the Band-Aid, I'll be okay. So I turned to this correctional officer. She's on my right side and I'm crying and I just don't want to look at this baby. She said, "Girl, you better look at that baby." And I did, and oh my God. She's so beautiful and she was so little. She was 6 pounds, 9 ounces, and I was so happy. I immediately fell in love with this baby. This beautiful little baby was mine.
I'm really thankful that she at least had a CO there who treated her as a human. This is hard for me to watch because we don't get a lot of training on this in medical school and residency, and I've had some patients that have been prisoners, and I think that I treated them appropriately, and I would hope that I would never be condescending to a patient because of their life situation, but it's really making me take more note of that. And I think that this is something that I talk about a lot on the internet, is how listening to people's stories has been very helpful to me in making sure that I understand how my bedside manner is interpreted and how my actions are coming across to patients. And so this is actually really helpful to me in that. And I hope that other people in the medical field will watch this and take note of it, because you don't stop being a human just because you make bad decisions. You're still a person. And she's really making it clear how hard that is when your medical team isn't treating you well.
Came in very quickly and she noticed that my leg was not chained to the bed, and she gasped and said, "I can't believe your leg isn't chained to the bed. Oh my God, I have to put that on your leg." And I kind of jerked my leg and I was like, "Why? Like, I'm not going anywhere. I can barely walk." She said, "It's policy." 4 hours after I gave birth to my first child, I was chained to a bed. The correctional officer told me I was not allowed to get out of the bed unless I had to go to the bathroom. Doctors came in and said she needs to walk around so that she can heal herself, so that she can be okay. The correctional officer looked at that doctor and said, "Per prison policy, she is not to get out of this bed."
That is unacceptable. Again, I keep repeating this, but you retain the right to adequate health care even when you are a prisoner. Exceptions are made to shackling during labor and delivery, and it sounds like that was followed in her case. But there are some states that don't even require that. I have had to ask a CO to take a patient out of shackles so that I could do an appropriate exam on them in the past, and they were very resistant. So I think it's really important that medical people watching this know that a patient's rights to have an adequate exam and be able to adequately care for themselves, whether it's labor and delivery or an emergency situation in the ER, if you need their shackles off to do a good exam, to help them, get up and move around, to keep them from getting a blood clot in pregnancy or after delivery or whatever it is, they have that right, and you as a medical provider can ask their shackles to be removed for this. This patient is not getting adequate care for themselves, and you can advocate for them. Again, that's not a specific rule in every state, but most states do have a law that says if it's preventing adequate care in a medical situation, they can be removed.
I was kind of afraid to even ask to go to the bathroom, honestly. I mean, it was so hard. So one of the doctors came in to check on me after probably 10 hours had gone by at this point, and she said, "I'm gonna give you Percocet, and I'm gonna give you something else, I guess so I didn't get an infection or whatever, some other medication." And I said, "Percocet? No thank you. Give me like ibuprofen and some really strong coffee, because I only have 24 hours and I just want to look at her." That doctor, whoever she is, like, if she ever sees this, I don't know why she would, but if she ever sees this, thank you so much. But she looked at me and said, "I think you need another 24 hours. I mean, she could just see it in my heart. I had to hold my daughter Micah for 48 hours, but those 48 hours went by so fast.
Okay, I'm gonna cry. It's not uncommon for first-time moms to be kept in the hospital for 48 hours, and I'm glad that she needed that and they made that decision for her. Jessica, if you ever see this, I wasn't your doctor, but maybe your doctor follows me and will happen to see it. I am going to cry. That is all.
I knew I was gonna have to say goodbye, but I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. So, 2 correctional officers came in. I'd never seen them before. They were big, very large individuals, and they said, "Kent, it's time." I didn't respond the way that I should have because I was so scared. I didn't want to leave this child. I had like mama bear like came out, and I said no. I'm holding Micah, and they're like, "Kent, don't do anything stupid. Put that baby down. You do not want to hurt her." And I said, "You're gonna have to pry her out of my dead hands." I was so upset, you guys. I did not want to put this baby down and walk away from her. No one told me where she was going, who she would be with, if she'd be okay, if I'd be able to see her, maybe talk to her on the phone, like, you know, baby talk, but like say something. I didn't know if I was gonna see her ever again. Finally, I kind of came to my senses and I put her down the little bassinet the hospitals give you, and I'm holding onto the edge of the bassinet, and I said, "I'll be back for you."
My gosh, this is very emotional. I have to just stop for a second. You know, I'm watching this now with my mom eyes a little bit, and I can't imagine how hard that was. No matter what your history is, where you came from, what you've done, being forced to give your baby to someone else 2 days after it's born is not something that most people would handle very well. So I think her describing this as very normal reaction, and most people watching probably agree that this seems like a very normal reaction, but it's heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking to hear her retell it, and I'm sure it is hard for her to think about.
Now I'm holding onto the bassinet, right? Cops grabbed me and it kind of pushed the bassinet a little bit. They cuffed me and threw me really hard into a wheelchair, and they started wheeling me out really quickly just to get me into the security van so that I can't escape, I guess. I don't know. They didn't know where my head was at. They have a job to do. I get it. I get back to the prison in the infirmary. They're asking me questions to make sure I'm okay to go back to general population. I couldn't talk. I probably have PTSD because of that, but they kept me in the infirmary for a couple of weeks because I was not okay. I wanted to end my life, but that wasn't something I was going to share with them, because when you tell someone in prison that you want to end your life, they strip you naked, put you in a pickle suit, and throw you in segregation in a dark, horrible cell, and they watch you for 72 hours. I was not willing to deal with that. I didn't tell anyone that. I wouldn't speak at all.
She sounds like she's having a very strong adjustment stress reaction to this situation. And honestly, I mean, I think, what else would you expect? Of course, that's how someone will react in this situation. It's traumatic. It's extremely traumatic. And she's very rational about it. You know, she said, they didn't know where my head was at. They had to take me away, but at the same time, she couldn't physically leave. And that probably is really common, that you have to be physically removed instead of walking out on your own volition in that situation. So I don't know. I don't know, guys. I keep trying to come up with like medical additions here, but all I can say is I'm having the same emotions that you're having. This is hard to watch, and there are parts of it where I definitely feel like we have devalued her as a human and not given her adequate access to medical care, which is a problem. And then there are parts of it where I'm like, yeah, I don't know how you could do that any different, but it's all sad even then.
Finally, I was cleared to go back to general population. Immediately, everyone's in my face. Oh my God, New York, are you okay? What happened? Is the baby okay? Blah, blah, blah. And I went right to my rack, didn't say a word to them, and I laid down on my bunk. I was not given anything for the milk in my breast. I was told I had to wrap ACE bandages around my breast, and I had to have someone else help me with that and keep them really tight so the milk went away. The pain was excruciating. It hurt so bad.
Yes, engorgement is incredibly painful. And in addition to the ACE bandages, although there's not a lot we can do to just stop milk production, it is, of my opinion, and probably ACOG's, because this is part of medical care, that she should have had access to some way pump her breast just to be comfortable. Whether she should be able to pump and save the milk and give it to the baby, that is completely up for debate. I don't want to get into that, but she definitely should have been able to pump for comfort, because getting engorged and remaining engorged absolutely increases her risk of getting an infection, and it's extremely painful. So that is something else that this is kind of making me want to just go advocate for prison reform for people who are pregnant.
Because I was left in a bed for 48 hours and then again in the infirmary, I was not okay. Like, I couldn't walk properly. I was limping because one side of my back hurt and the other side was okay. The epidural was done incorrectly. I couldn't walk properly because of that. Also, during labor, because the epidural was done incorrectly, I could feel everything on one side, not the other. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because I wasn't holding still or they didn't put it in right, but it was a very painful process in the healing phase.
So yeah, I can answer that. It's not usually that it's done incorrectly. It can be if someone is moving a lot because they're in pain, but a lot of times this is just the epidural is not always consistent in the way it's taken up by your body structure. It's more likely to just have to do with somebody's anatomy than it is their actions or the actions of the person who placed the epidural. This should wear off. It's not something that should be permanent. It doesn't happen often, but it can happen with an epidural.
I didn't see my daughter again until she was 6 months old. I didn't know what she looked like. I didn't know if she was okay. I didn't know where she was. I didn't know what she was doing. The foster family did try to send me a ton of pictures, but the prison kept sending them back. They didn't know the rules, and in that prison you can only get 5 pictures at a time. You can also only keep 5 pictures in your property at all times. They will get taken away from you. You will go to segregation if you have more than 5 pictures. I finally get out, and Micah has been in DHS custody for over a year. I worked a DHS case for another year, and I did hair follicle tests, drug and alcohol counseling, therapy. I did parenting classes. I visited my daughter every single weekend. She was placed 4 hours away from me. I had no money, no car, no shoes. I was living in a halfway house, and I still had to find a way to make it work, but I did it. It was really hard, but I overcame all of those things. I now have full custody of my daughter, and I'm so proud of myself, you guys. And I want to share that with you because no mistake is too great to not recover and bounce back. I'm living proof that sobriety is possible. It is not a death sentence. No mistake is too great to not recover and bounce back.
I'm proud of you too, Jessica. I didn't expect to be very emotional during this. You are doing a great service by sharing your story, so thank you. Thank you for being here today. If you're new and you'd like to subscribe, we would love to have you. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Be kind to yourself, to each other, to me in the comments. Be kind, and I will see you next Monday.